Well, let's get the local view on this. Let's talk to Jonathan Davis. Jonathan's an economist and wealth manager from Hertfordshire. Good evening, Jonathan.
Hello, Roberto.
Jonathan, we're back to this subject of rising house prices because most people think it's good news.
Well, you say most people. I wouldn't necessarily agree with you there. Certainly those who are up to their eyeballs in debt, as in mortgage debt, will certainly think it's good news. But, you know, retirees who've paid off their mortgage a long, long time ago, I'm not even sure if they're particularly bothered whether prices go up or down. Okay, I guess they probably think that a high house price will pay for their long-term care eventually, but it's not massively important. And then, of course, you've got probably a quarter of the population who aren't in housing, who are absolutely devastated by rising house prices. So it's not as clear-cut as you might suggest.
It is a major problem. Always has been a problem, Jonathan. Has it become more acute? And I know that one of my neighbours sold a house recently and the estate agent organised a general viewing day and people were trying to outbid each other, but not by a few hundred quid, by thousands of pounds.
Well, you know, one of the definitions of a bubble is that everyone, quote unquote, believes that prices will rise because they will rise. And of course, we're in a mania. We had a mania up to 2007, and then we had, of course, 2008, the biggest economic and financial collapse in history. And what did the politicians do? They slashed the base rate from 5% to 0.5%, so mortgage costs went right down. The economy got going again, and of course, they also borrowed vastly in order to bail out the banks. And where we are now, 5 years later, the new intervention is Help to Buy, which started last year. And I know you said in your piece there that some are saying, well, maybe it should be reined in and whatever. The fact is, 2010, 11 and 12, the market was in a state of collapse. Prices were flat with the lowest borrowing costs in history. In 320 years of the Bank of England, prices were flat. And then they brought in Help to Buy, which is essentially the taxpayers guaranteeing mortgages. Because the reason why prices weren't rising is because the banks weren't lending because they knew what was about to happen. Prices were about to fall over a cliff. Help to Buy guarantees mortgages, lending it's going again, and prices rise. There's two further points. The traditional view is that if they suddenly built vast more estates, tens of thousands of properties and so on, then prices would fall. I can absolutely guarantee you that is not the case. In Ireland, in Spain, in China.
Okay, why not? Because clearly there are a lot of empty houses in Spain and Ireland, for example, but no one wants to live there.
Yep. But that's the point. They built vastly. 15% of the economy went on housing, and prices kept on rising, and they kept on rising, and they kept on rising. Ultimately, prices fell because of the European demise, not because of the numbers of property. Secondly, what they actually need to do is bring a thing back called capitalism. What they shouldn't have done was bailed out the banks. And the thing is, we have a very low base rate. Roberto, borrowing costs are still at all-time lows. The next time there's a global economic collapse, and I assure you it's going to happen probably in a couple, maybe a few years, there is nothing that the then government will be able to do. So people who are getting in now with a mania, they need to realise what they're getting into.
Because it's like almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm thinking, hang on a minute, I've got a property, maybe I need to borrow even more money to buy an even bigger property and capitalise on the situation.
And that's the reason why house prices rose for 40 or 50 years. It's not because of the quality of properties or immigration or divorces. It's because of easy lending for decades, which again was exacerbated last year and this year with the introduction of Help to Buy.
So is the answer more difficult mortgages to get hold of?
No, the answer is that if the banks mess up, which of course they are doing, they should not be bailed out. and therefore they will not mess up in the first place. But every time they mess up, what happens? They go to the Treasury, they go to the government, lend us money or we'll bring down the system. And what does, lend us money, give us money. And what does the government then do? Whichever government it is, because remember, it was the Labour lot last time who did it in 2009, not the Tories or the Lib Dems. They will borrow vastly from our children again and hand it to the banks. So what we need to do is stop bailing out the banks. Then prices will fall, and the people who are devastated will be able to buy. And I tell you, there's 700,000 empty homes in England alone. They will come in the market as prices fall.
Okay.